Houston is our nation's fourth largest city, and we're showing signs of growing pain, from transit and the budget to the arts and HPD, and who can overlook all the construction? Hi, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on InnerVIEWS, our conversation with the mayor of this great city, Bill White. Is the job as mayor different than what you expected to find?
Well, by and large, it's what I expected because I'd done my homework and gone out to the neighborhoods, figured out what some of the things we wanted to do are. And I've run organizations before, done finances. That part of the job is, I'd say, as expected. I'll tell you what's unexpected, though, is, I wasn't used to everybody knowing who I was when I walked into the, the grocery store or out to a movie. And the public support has also been a lot more than I thought. I thought if I took on some of these controversial issues, like the pension reform or, some of the other things, the tow truck industry and all that the public would be more divided than it's been. But Houstonians have been supportive and to an extent that really has surprised me and a lot of other people here at City Hall.
Is the job easier or harder than you expected?
It's long hours. I knew that running a big city, that great city, and trying to accomplish a lot was going to be hard. Changing the culture so we're more customer-oriented within the city of Houston, saving every bit of the taxpayers' dollars that we could. I knew that was going to be hard. But to tell you the truth, I didn't realize how easy, not easy is the wrong word, but City Council has come together and a lot of the civic leadership has come together, and that's made it so that the politics of it aren't that hard because most Houstonians want the same things. It's the management day to day, improving day to day that takes discipline and attention. Is
it a very unglamorous job?
Oh boy, there's parts of it that are unglamorous, I want to tell you. Anybody who could look into the municipal channel will see, on Tuesday afternoons, maybe I shouldn't mention this on television, but if you want to say something to your city council and mayor, show up on Tuesdays and you can talk about anything. But I'll tell you what, it's a very fulfilling job because every day I can do concrete things that change, that have some impact on the life of people. Yeah. And that's very fulfilling.
Now, I hear rumors all the time, and in this case, I've heard rumors that are absolutely the opposite of each other. One saying, you only want this one term and you don't want back, and then the other one is, you want to change term limits so you can stay on. Where do you fall in all of that?
Well, I can tell you for sure it's not changing term limits to stay on. I think my wife and I agreed on term limits of our own, long before the campaign began. And honestly, I don't think you can, accomplish a change in the culture of customer service in a city just in 2 years and do some of the things we want on mobility and economic development and improving the neighborhood drainage situation in just a couple of years. So, I plan to be mayor more than one term if people want me to work for them.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some issues here. You cannot talk about Houston without somebody saying, road construction. What is going on? There was a lot of hope when you came in, all this would quiet down, and yet there's so much still going on. One person sent me an email and said, can't they finish one project before they start the next one? What do you say to all of that?
Well, for city-managed construction projects, that's what we've done. A good example of that is downtown. Downtown was a war zone for 4 or 5 years practically, and there were streets torn up 4 or 5 times in a row. My office building was between 2 of those streets. I saw it. I know it. And we didn't finish road construction downtown at the Super Bowl. We still had 2 to go, Travis Street and Smith Street. But the way we're doing it now is we're knocking out 4 or 5 blocks and then moving on, knocking out 4 or 5 blocks and then moving on. And they're done quickly, and the contractors are given incentive. Now, I'll tell you what, road and street construction is never pleasant for anybody, just like, building a new house or whatever. You've heard all the stories. I don't know anybody who's had a good experience with, building their new house or some construction delay and an inconvenience. What causes a lot of the problem, I think, is the construction that the Texas Department of Transportation is doing at 610 and Katy. That's one of the largest construction projects ever undertaken in the history of Houston. And I'd say that, whether you agreed or disagreed with whether or not they should do it, I do monitor that, not that I control it. And they, too, have some incentives for the contractors to finish fast.
Mm-hmm. Explain for the audience to understand the separation between Metro and the mayor's office. How are you guys connected? How are you separate?
Well, I appoint the majority of the directors of the Metropolitan Transit Authority, Metro. When I recruited those citizens, I did give some guidelines about what I expected them to do as my appointees at Metro. But they actually vote on and hire the staff, vote on issues at Metro, hire the staff at Metro. So it's not under the daily control of the mayor. But in fairness, the mayor has some influence.
Yeah. What about rail expansion? Where do you see it going next? People say, okay, Galleria, the airports, I-10. What do you think is the priorities?
I think the directions in which it will go will be along the lines set forth in the ballot last November. That there were planned extensions there to the north, to the southeast, to the southwest would be examples of that. They need to tie into the existing Main Street rail line. I think it'll be done in stages. And I think that Metro management is looking at what available technologies there are. So should we have some of it above the ground, some of it underground, or along the ground as it is? Are there new materials and technologies that could lower the cost, make the train go faster, and reduce accidents? That's one of the major
accidents. Let's talk a little bit about that. Recently a report came out that said we're in pretty bad shape. What are we going to do about that? What can we do about it?
Well, the rate of accidents has slowed down this year, and there are some changes that Metro's made, and I told them they had to make some changes having to do with the timing of the traffic signals, the Metro Police, and people just being more aware. A lot of the accidents were caused by the fact that the train is quiet, and you'd have people taking illegal left turns. I've seen some of the videotapes.
Yeah.
And I think folks thought, you can see this, that if there's a train there would be some noise, but the train is if you're in a car and you have the air conditioning on, you can't hear it at all practically. So there were a bunch of people turning left into the train. I think we're doing better. I think when we design an expansion of the Metro system, we need to learn from this and design it better.
Yeah. How much of it is stuff that was set in motion, though, before you were in charge? And how difficult is that then to get in there and let your will be heard? And I'm not just talking about in this issue, but across the board. When you're in a city that's been running for years and years and years and you're stepping in, how difficult is that?
Oh, sure. Well, there's a difficulty. I mean, the city of Houston is a large organization, and the airports and the trash, the police, fire, all the municipal services that we provide, the water and sewer system of our city. Altogether, you have over 20,000 people working in the city of Houston. And, inertia just isn't a law of physics. I mean, all of us, individually, if you haven't exercised, it's hard to wake up and exercise. If you exercise every morning, you miss it. I mean, we're creatures of habit, and so are organizations. So I'm changing the habits of the city. I want it to be more performance-oriented. For the first time in the history of the city of Houston, we now have a performance pay band where if two employees have the same type of job and one is more productive, performs better than another, they can make more money. That's not a radical, that's the way most Americans work in the private sector. In the city, it's something new. Customer service is something new, where the interactions with the public need to be friendly and they need to be prompt, and there shouldn't be bureaucratic runaround when the citizens deal with the city. That we're trying to change, and we're making some progress on that. But you're right, we've inherited a lot, including some of the debts and financial problems of the city.
Talk a little bit about the debt. Where are we financially? Where are we going, and is there hope in the future here?
Yeah. Well, we're certainly stronger than we've been in a long time financially, and I think one of the signs of that is that earlier this year, about, I don't know, I'm mayor for 4 or 5 months, I'd met with the bond rating agencies for our largest amount of debt, the water and sewer debt, Moody's. And for the first time in many, I've told decades, we had our bond ratings increased because they liked the business-like approach we were taking to City Hall. They liked the idea that we were taking on the issue and speaking honestly about the pension system and trying to address it head on instead of just delay, defer. And to tell you the truth, I think the fact that we've shown discipline with a tax cut, that the first administration in decades, I'm told, to put a tax cut in our budget, that Houstonians understand that, we know it's not our money, that property taxes have been going up faster than the incomes, and that we'll be good stewards of their dollar.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the pension fund. People still seem confused. There was an election on it. They don't know what's happening. One criticism I heard before the election, or the vote on it, was that, yes, you're asking them to do something, but there's no plan what to do once the vote was done. Where are we with all of that?
Well, the plan, I actually was careful to lay some of this out with the police pension system before the election, and we were working on it, gave some ideas what we would do with the municipal pension system, and had a plan that I laid out 2 days after the election or so on the municipal pension. We've been dealing with employees. We're in negotiations. We've made a lot of progress. I hope there will be an announcement very, very soon. And we will have been the first city in the United States to have taken on this issue of pension reform, of having secure, affordable pensions, so that the employees know that they won't be left at the end of the line and is stuck with an IOU that has no money. And the taxpayers could know that there won't be something like in San Diego where you got to raise property taxes by 30% and cut public safety in order to meet pension obligations.
Now, you've been talking also about property tax caps versus revenue tax caps. And explain that for everyone to understand where you sit on this issue and why.
Well, something's wrong with the system where the property taxes have gone up so much faster than people's incomes or ability to pay. And that we got to address that head on. And we're going to do it with a charter amendment. And I urge people to vote for that charter amendment. There is a group out there, it's a citizens group, and I know that at least once before they came up with one of these things that was soundly defeated by the voters in 1997, I believe. But they were frustrated by some of the rising cost of government, and they put together a proposal that would apply to all sources of revenue from the city, but it wouldn't limit property taxes or any other tax. It was just an overall limit. And it has some errors, like if the number of people who come from outside of Houston staying in hotels goes way up, and I think it may, because we're going to draw these conventions. They pay taxes, hotel taxes, and under their words, the faster those hotel taxes go up, then, and that counts against their cap, the more you'll have to cut police and fire protection that's paid out of another fund. In other words, you're going to have to lower your taxes in order, one taxes that go into police and fire protection in order to make up for the increase in the money you make from people coming in from out of town. That makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And since it doesn't guarantee any amount of property tax relief, and that's the biggest problem, I don't think it accomplishes what some of them thought would accomplish. So, I gave a long answer there, Ernie, but to say I'm for property tax caps, but not some revenue cap where it would be very uncertain what the effect of that would be.
Yeah. You mentioned in there police for a moment there, so it takes me on to the whole issue of what's going on with the Houston Police Department. The image it's had hasn't been that great, everything going on with the crime lab. What do you see the future there? And can we clean all that up? And to add to this question, to make it even longer, all the people that might possibly have been innocent people convicted of crimes because of the mess that's there.
Well, I'll first say this about the image of the Houston police, that I've met most of the over 5,000 men and women in uniform in the Houston Police Department. I've talked to most of them. I think any citizen who spends any time with any significant number of our police will come away impressed. They're motivated. They're one of the most educated police forces in any major city. They are community-oriented. We have the best police chief, I think, that any major city in the United States has. I mean, he was recruited by everybody. So we have a lot to be proud of with the Houston Police Department. Sure, there's officers who will make errors. Sure, there's some bad apples, and we got to get rid of them. One of them's being indicted, and the police, we're pushing for that. Yes, we need to do a better job in training and making sure that people understand the community outreach. It'd be great if every Houston police officer spoke 2 languages, for example, in this, so we can improve. But I think we have a pretty good police department compared to all the rest in the country. Now, on this issue of innocent people, nobody wants an innocent person to be convicted. So I'm glad that there are a couple of independent reviews going on. One, there's an independent certification of the DNA laboratory where significant improvement has been made. An independent group certifying that laboratory, and we expect to get it certified by the end of the year to bring it up to the standards and to have proof that we brought it up to the standards. Second, the DA's office is going through each of the cases where DNA evidence was crucial to the conviction and having those cases retested. And that process is almost through.
Yeah. Is that probably one of the biggest scandals facing our city right now, one of the most important issues?
Well, it certainly has been, but I think we've turned a corner. I mean, there was a denial for a while that there was a problem with the DNA lab. Now I think everybody recognizes and acknowledges that there were problems. And we're taking the steps to correct it. So,
how do we make sure things like that don't happen, though, in the first place? What can you do in your office? What can happen throughout the city to make sure we don't find ourselves in similar situations?
A culture of attention to detail and accountability. That you don't sweep problems under the rugs and that somebody is held responsible. Every organization, just like every person, is going to make mistakes. But what you do in order to make sure that you minimize those kind of mistakes or systemic problems is free flow of communication, openness and access to the press, not being defensive about the way things have been, and holding people accountable.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the arts in Houston. And we also have a lot of sports going on here, too.
Yes.
How do you balance off the two of them? Where does your emphasis fall between arts and culture and sporting?
Well, I'd say, there doesn't need to be a trade-off. And, of course, the mayor isn't ultimately going to make that decision. I think, healthy bodies and not just professional sports, but a fitness-oriented, city that has a lot of hike and bike trails where people are encouraged to get outside, especially some of the young people, not just stand in front of sit in front of the TV tube. I think that's something that I try to promote in every way that I can. But great cultures, great countries, and great cities are judged by their arts. And we have some world-class art institutions right here. That's why I've created a special assistant to the mayor for arts and cultural affairs, and we have a lot of interaction with the arts community. It doesn't require a lot of public funding within the United States. Arts are principally supported by the private sector, but I try to give recognition wherever I can of arts groups. Not just the big ones downtown. There's a lot out in the neighborhoods that are vital, and we have one of the great art scenes in the United States here in Houston.
When you're promoting the city, though, out in the world, do we promote it from the sports that you can come here and see, or do we also push the arts you can come here and see?
Well, I'll tell you what, honestly, if you want to be candid, I'm not going to push either of those things. What I'm going to push is our being this great city of opportunity where, people can come to improve their lives. Most of us have come here from somewhere else, just, looking for a city where we would be judged on who we are and not who our daddy was or what our gender was or what our ethnicity was or where we were born. Houstonians want to be judged. No Houstonian is any better than any other Houstonian if you play by the rules and you work hard. And to me, that is the distinctive feature of Houston. Yes, we're a major world-class city. We have arts on a world-class par. We have sports on a world-class par. We have outdoor recreation. Our schools are better than the schools in many major urban areas of this country. We're a safe city. We're a friendly city, and I wouldn't trade our weather for Chicago or New York or the Pacific Northwest, 8 out of 12 months every year. But what makes us unique is being the city of opportunity with this unique diversity of people coming in from all backgrounds, and our friendliness, because we have all been welcomed by others, and therefore we embrace people who come new to Houston.
Yeah. Following up on that too, a lot of talk is going on right now about gay and lesbian benefits. How do you feel about that for city employees, for domestic partnership benefits?
Well, a couple of years ago, there was a city charter amendment passed, which I opposed, that said that the city government could not be competitive with the private sector employers in this regard. I think that was a wrong decision, because we want the ability to attract employees, hardworking people with all lifestyles, and so, but that was that charter amendment has been, was made. So I think right now there's really no choice on that confronting the city of Houston, other than to say this, that I want to make a commitment to anybody with talent who works hard and has something to contribute, that you will not be discriminated against if you're an employee of the city of Houston, if I have anything to say about it.
Somebody sent me an email and said that after you had participated in the gay and lesbian parade, that you'd met with some clergy and they were disappointed in that. How do you handle something like that? How do you decide where you appear and what you do for one group compared to maybe bothering another group? How do you balance it all?
Well, very simple for me. I go to practically every parade I'm invited to because my job is to represent all Houstonians, not just one group. And I don't care, what your faith is or what your ethnic background is or sexual orientation. Or most people want to see our city, make it easier to get around the city. They want more good-paying jobs in the city of Houston. Most people want, more and better parks and green space and libraries for our neighborhoods. Most people want us to do a better job of getting more out of taxpayers' dollars. That's what I'm hearing. And all these things that the politicians use to drive wedges against folks, to pit group against group, I'm tired of it. And I think a lot of citizens in Houston are too.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about Houston, It's Worth It. Now, that's not a city campaign, correct?
Yeah, no. I mean, there's a couple of people out there, and citizens, and it gained momentum early on. And, I'm friends with all the people, one of the financial supporters, a couple of the people who came up with the creative concept, to which, my reaction was, Houston is worth it. I mean, and I want to encourage all citizens just to celebrate what we have. Don't be ashamed or defensive about Houston. Look, Houston has grown at a faster percentage rate than any of the other major cities in the country. So what does that tell you? That tells you that people, they come here. They want. We're not having a problem like a lot of the big cities in the Midwest and other major cities are in losing population. Our problem is that people want to come here. And so sometimes there's too much traffic, too much, we've built so fast we hadn't thought about where the floodwaters were going to go. This is a great city, and we ought to be proud of it.
What are the challenges that are facing you right now in this job?
Well, I'm still getting this budget right, making sure we do something where we're the first city in the United States not to do things with smoke and mirrors. The federal government of the United States now just, I guess, they're paying for government on the installment plan. And if a business was run like the federal government or many governments in many cities, they'd go broke. Starting with this culture of honesty and accountability in public finance is a struggle day after day after day. And then The other challenge is just, making sure that people understand that the citizen is the customer, and that every interaction with the citizen you have to make it more positive. Just yesterday, I was in a big meeting about our municipal court system. I don't know whether you've been down there. Of course, you probably, Ernie's never had a traffic ticket, but, anybody who's had a traffic ticket goes down there. There's citizens, hundreds, waiting in these rooms for hours and hours, police officers who could be on the street, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I think that system is built more for, criminal defense attorneys than the citizen. And we need to change that. And so those are some of the challenges that I face every day.
Okay, in the last couple seconds we have left, what is it you think people misunderstand about the job of mayor?
Well, a lot of people think that I run the city schools or in other things like this. But, I don't know. I didn't understand that our community was looking for positive leadership to bring people together and get things done in the way that it is. I knew a lot of people, but right now Houston has a feeling of optimism, has a feeling of unity and a purpose that we just don't see in other major cities, and I'm so proud of that.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Mayor, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time from your busy day to sit down and chat with us.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Ernie.
Mayor Bill White.